Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back to the Awakening to Your Soul Self podcast. I have Mariah here. She is a mama of three daughters. She's an author in progress, a dancer, a realtor. She's going to share her really deep and honest story that I'm really excited for you to hear. She is also an automatic writing channeler as well. I'm really curious to hear how she does it because I do automatic writing as well. I don't know if I told you that, Mariah. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything. I think I have a few questions here, but I'm really excited about the automatic writing piece because that is one of the most valuable ways that I can communicate with my spirit team, besides meditating. So, welcome, Mariah.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. I haven't spoken to anybody else that does automatic writing. I think just one more person, but she spoke about it really briefly. I'm really excited for this episode.
This is cool. I love it.
So, with every guest, I always have them start out with telling us a little bit about yourself and if you can share your spiritual awakening journey if you had one, because I have a lot of different guests who are in the spiritual world and not, but I think you are. Um, I just feel like everybody's journey is so unique and different. I always like to say two people can experience the same thing, but experience it differently.
Say that all the time. It all depends on the lens in which you're seeing the world, right? We could be doing something
Yes,
side by side, and I could see it as beautiful, and you could see it as a struggle, right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm a mom, and was a dance teacher my entire adult life. I started teaching dance when I was 21. I danced growing up. Opened my first dance studio when I was 23. Then by the time how old would I have been? Maybe 35, 36. My dance studio had just like taken over my life. I'm one of those people that it's like, I can never stop trying to build and grow and make things better. I created something that was like, it was a monster. Like, you know, instead of having like
Yeah.
the little homemade programs at the year end recital, it was like I was spending money and having these glossy printed things with photos of, you know
Ooh.
what I mean? It was like there was always
Yeah, yeah.
more. And that stuff was always fun. But what I found, what had happened was that I'd come up with new ideas like, oh, hey, well, we should offer birthday party options for kids that want to come and have dance parties. And we should do
Yeah.
this and we should do that. But dance teachers aren't a dime a dozen. Well, in some places they're a dime a dozen, but I lived in a fairly small, isolated town. So you
Okay.
can't just find other people to do these things. You do them yourself. So because my brain was always coming up with new ideas, I had to facilitate the ideas. So by about 35, 36, let's say in my earlier 30s, a few things had gone a little bit sideways. I just had some stuff that happened in the dance world that was making it not less enjoyable, but there were things that were coming up that were like felt heartbreaking. That were like it was like
Didn't feel as good.
it didn't feel as good. I still love teaching, but just a few things happened in a row that was like, oh, I didn't, it had taken over our lives and it wasn't bringing
Mm.
me as much joy as it used to. The overall business ownership, teaching dance class will always bring joy. I managed to find someone who wanted to buy my dance studio because I was hell bent that after all the blood, sweat, and tears I'd put into this business where I had like 200 kids dancing and multiple dance,
Wow.
like I'd built a business. I was not going to just close this and walk away, right?
Yes.
I found a buyer. We were eager. We were on the West Coast at that point, so we were eager to get ourselves back to the mountains. We wanted to come back to the Kootenays, to the Rockies,
Yeah.
and so I managed to find someone to buy my business, and we made a move here. We'd lived here before, my family and I. And then we moved here in 2018, and then we came back to my husband's hometown, which I'd lived here before. And I loved it. When I didn't live here, I missed it like it was a person. Like I really
Yeah.
missed the place. Since being back, I don't have the right verbiage for it, but someone told me that there's a reason people are called to this area. There's some pretty majestic mountains here. And there's actually some like,
Ooh.
I'm going to dive into that a little bit more because there's some stuff that calls you
Yes.
here. Anyhow, so we moved back here. I started just working. I just took an administrative job and didn't work for myself for a change, which was fine, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And so then
Yeah.
I getting my real estate license. I still taught dance. I just didn't own a dance studio at that point. We moved across the province. And so I just would teach for other people. Then eventually I got my real estate license during COVID. Now I've been in real estate for just over 4 years. So that's been the kind of like career journey I've taken. I would
Okay.
say when it comes to how spirituality went for me, as I was writing my memoir, I had some kind of neat realizations. I'm in the editing stages of my
Mm.
memoir. Turns out editing is way harder than writing.
I've heard.
What I realized was that when I was a little girl, my grandma was Catholic and I spent a lot of time with my grandma. We were very close. We would go to mass. I don't know why I wasn't being sent off to like catechism or Sunday school or whatever that is within the Catholic Church, but I wasn't. I don't know. I don't know why, but I was just always with my grandma.
Yeah.
But it was really boring, right? And so like it was so
I'm glad
boring.
that you said that. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm glad you said that because my story is the opposite. So I had catechism, I went to mass. In
Yes.
about fifth grade, I told my parents, I said, this doesn't resonate like with me anymore. Like,
Yeah.
and people are not going to love when I say it. Every time I went to church, I just didn't feel anything. And I did like you, I found it boring. Like, I'm like, but why does Jesus want us to like be in church? Doesn't Jesus want us to like be with him everywhere?
Ooh, I just got all the goosebumps when you said that. Oh,
And
yes.
like they both were like, yes, okay, like we'll drop the catechism, but we'll go, like once a month. Like so it just didn't like bring me joy. They were raised very Catholic as well. So I'm like, I'll compromise, like I'll do it.
Right.
And I started to feel the same thing. They're like, I think you're right. Like I don't think we have like to show our faith, we have to go to church. Like we do our nightly prayers and our morning prayers, like and we're Portuguese, so we believe in Lady Fatima. She it's kind of like Mother Mary. The last time we went to Portugal, that was one of our promises is if we were to go back to visit, we would visit her. When I went there, the last time we went was 2021. Our promise, because they haven't been at that point was 18 years. Because they were both from Portugal. They are both immigrants. When we got there, and I said, Mom, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Not
Yes.
being confined in a church, being in because like where Lady Fatima is, there's this whole story where my grandma walked the whole way from her house to this place. Many, many people do it. I believe it's May 13th. It's like a very important thing in Portugal. When we went there and I said, Mom, the churches here are just beautiful. They feel different than the American ones. I can't describe it. And when we after we left, I said, Mom, this is what I was trying to tell you in fifth grade, but I didn't have the words to say it because I didn't have my gifts developed that much in fifth grade. And now that I have, I'm like, this is what I'm talking about, Mom.
Yeah. The confines of religion in so many ways versus the way we can feel connected to source, God, whatever, the divine, right? Versus that was something that I don't know that it rubbed me the wrong way yet, but I know that I was tuning it out. I dare to say, what a gift that I was tuning it out. So yeah, I can't imagine. For me, I don't recall I wasn't being forced, but it was what my grandma did on her Saturday night or on her Sunday
Yeah.
morning, right?
It wasn't forceful, but it was like
Yeah, it was like, this is what we're doing, right? I liked being with my grandma. And afterwards, before or after, depending on what time we were going and what day of the week it was, there was always either lunch afterwards or ice cream or whatever, right? So I was like, yeah, okay,
Yep.
I'll do this, right? So sitting in there in mass, tuning it out because I was bored out of my mind, what I realized now when I was writing the memoir, I started manifesting, but I didn't know what I was manifesting. I didn't know what I
Right.
didn't know. I didn't know. You don't know what manifesting is when you're in elementary school. Well, my kids
Right.
do, but I didn't.
Now they do.
Now
Whole
they do.
different generation.
Totally. So to give you a little bit of backstory there, I grew up, both of my parents, I don't know that either of my parents knew they were mentally ill yet when they were younger. They were self-medicating to deal with it all. And then as time went on, you get older and stuff comes up and then it comes out, so both of my parents are mentally ill. I mean, well, that sounds so harsh, doesn't it? Both of my parents struggle. They both had major traumas growing up. They both experienced extreme trauma. And when I was a child, all the way through my childhood, my parents were both addicts. They were both using. So that was part of being sent to grandma's house every weekend because then they were just doing what they wanted, which whatever, better that I was at grandma's house there. So
Yes.
I didn't grow up in like, I wasn't growing up in a house where it was like a party house or anything, but it was like, there was a lot of dysfunction, right? I knew, and I think I also intrinsically knew that that there wasn't much happiness. There wasn't happiness. There wasn't laughter. I'm an only child. So there wasn't like fun going on in my house. It was like me with my, dare I say, miserable parents. And that was just our life, right? Going through the motions of life. My parents were not happy in their marriage. There's just a lot of unhappiness. And I think like toxicity and just discomfort. No one was striving for anything. No one was celebrating anything. I knew from going over to friends' houses and seeing things on TV, maybe, just the world. I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel normal. And this is not what I want. So when I would sit there in church, I would imagine my grown-up life. That's how the manifestation stuff started. I would sit there and play through what my daily life would look like when I was a mom and a wife and a homeowner and I would just go through it in my mind. I didn't have all the details laid out, obviously, but it was only once I was then in my 30s living that life that I was like, wait a second, I did this. I knew what I wanted. Not to say that it was like the most normal path to get there. I've taken some different routes, that's for sure. But I was living, and then as I was writing, it was like, yes, right. I was manifesting. I started manifesting. To be honest, I'm in a tricky phase of my life right now. It's made me kind of like stomp my feet in a proverbial temper tantrum to go like, maybe manifesting isn't real and I have no control over anything and nothing is right and I can't make anything happen. And it's like, okay, so then the flip side of that is the things that you imagine are the things that can happen. It's not maybe that you're making them happen, but it's you in it, and it's whatever, it's another dimension or it's another whatever, it's some image that comes to you because it's going that way, right? I've been toying with that. So I'm totally off track. This has nothing to do with the spiritual journey.
Oh, that's okay. I say whatever comes out is supposed to come out because I haven't not told that story.
Right.
And I like didn't even mean to interrupt you, but they were just like, say it because you got to say it. And I was like,
I'll share it, right? Well, and I think what a reminder for like what struck me when you shared that story was like, wow, that your parents didn't just shut that down. They were, I mean, if you were fifth grade, you're 10 years old, right? Like that means we're 10 or 11 years old. Your parents actually heard you at 10 or 11 years old. And we're like, let's take this into consideration, not, hey, shut up and do what you're told, right? Like, isn't that?
Yeah.
And what a reminder for all of us that our kids can carry loads of wisdom at a very young age, right? Yeah. Yeah. So when I was in like junior high age, my dad got clean, stopped using drugs, and started going to AA and NA, Narcotics Anonymous. By the time I was 13, my parents had split. Just before I turned 14, I was living with my dad for a little while, just him and I, which was foreign because all of my childhood, although my parents were married and together, I didn't know my dad. He was like a stranger in our house, right? He worked a lot to support his habits. When he was around, he wasn't emotionally available. And so out of a wild turn of events, I ended up living just me and my dad at 13, 14 years old. My dad was really big into the 12-step program. He was working all the steps and doing everything he could. I used to hear people talk about the books by Neale Donald Walsch, Conversations with God.
I love his books.
So from 13 on, I heard people talk about this. Now, my dad only managed to stay clean for 3-4 years, and then the rest is history. But I'd known the name of those books because in the program, so in the 12-step program, and this would have been the mid to late 90s, these books, I don't even know when those books were published, probably around that time, because everybody,
it
would make sense. So many people in the program were talking about, you hear all these recovering alcoholics, recovering addicts talk about these books, but it wasn't on I was hearing it, but anyways. So then when I was fast forward to when I was 21, I had taken kind of an interesting transient type job. I was actually working for a friend's dad. I was living in his, not with him, but I was living in his like old 72 Winnebago in the summer and working this different job. And in an old school Winnebago like that, if you've ever been, anyone who's been in one, oftentimes around the top of it is like shelves, like bookshelves or whatever kind of shelves, storage, whatever, open. And his were filled with books. And up there were the Conversations with God books. I was like, oh, hey, I know those. Like, I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
I pick one of them up and start reading it. And all of the things clicked, right? It was like everything made sense. And it helped me, click. Like I can't even, almost like a gear getting into the right spot. Like, yep. It was like the answers that were being spoken when Neale Donald Walsch asks his questions of God, God answers them. They all made sense to me. It was like that, as we would say now, not that we weren't saying this in the 90s, but now you'd say that tracks, right? Like That
Yes.
that clicks. That makes sense. I loved in there too that it talked about it really also clicked for me too that it's like, yes, these really tight form religion things where you must do this and you must do that and this is the way you worship, this is the way you show your love for God, whatever, all that sort of stuff. He also in those books says like, I don't think that's not the way. That's I mean, maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that. That's the way for some people, but that is not the way, the
The
only
way. Yep.
right? And I loved those books. I remember as I was reading them, I ended up reading them all, right? And as I was reading them, once in a while, I would go to myself, this guy's really telling us that he's channeling God as he writes these books. Come on, am I really believing this baloney? And then I would like be like, okay, shake it off. You like this? Just keep reading it. Give it a trial. And I would.
Yep.
So I kept having to like set that skeptical part of my thoughts aside, put that over here, and just keep reading the book.
Right.
And once you're then full, maybe through the first book, well, then you're like, okay, I'm buying into this. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I get it. And then I just kept reading them all. And
yeah,
that formulation, if you will, of my spirit, that at that time at 21, I would say is when it kind of locked in what I felt about spirituality and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, before I had a real like aha, which is only in the last 5 to 7 years, is I started to grow in a little bit of my discomfort with organized religion.
Yeah.
In that we would go, I remember once my mother-in-law would bring my daughters to church, and her one request was that everybody, the whole family, would go on Christmas Eve, and she went to a Baptist church. And I remember one year the pastor is speaking, and he's talking about these people in Utah or something and how they've lost the Christ in Christmas. These people over here last year got Guinness Book of World Records for most Christmas lights. And then these people down the road, they wanted to beat them, and it became this like Christmas light competition. He was standing up there and kind of, I guess reprimanding isn't the word, they weren't there, but like speaking badly of these people because they were not celebrating Christmas the way he felt that they should be celebrating Christmas. And that was the basis of what he was talking about on Christmas Eve. It was not sitting right with me. And when we left and drove in the car, I had the opportunity to turn my kids in the back seat and be like, okay, let's talk about that. That pastor does not know those people. Those people might decorate the heck out of their houses on Christmas and go crazy with their Christmas lights. But you know what? On Christmas Day, they might be making turkey for homeless people and handing out blankets. That pastor does not know.
Right.
There is no reason for him to stand up there and judge, right? As I say that out loud, I'm like, well, I guess you could all take it in different ways. Maybe he was just using that as an example and whatever. But it was just one more like tick in the I don't like that stuff. I don't like the judgment. Yeah. I don't like the idea that there's sitting up there watching me in the sky and deciding what's right or wrong. All of that did not feel right for me. And little things happened. My kids would go to vacation Bible camp in the summertime with grandma, and they'd sometimes come home with these things that just didn't feel right. Was not just the message of love and light. On the flip side of that, I became very close friends with a girlfriend who became an amazing friend. Her and her husband were the pastors of the Foursquare Church in our community. I would have never thought that one of my best girlfriends would be running a church, but she was also someone, they are just love and light, right? Like it's one day I came out of my dance studio when I was having those struggles I came out of the dance studio and there was a minivan parked in front of my dance studio with the door open, and she was sitting there and she saw me and went, I'm so sorry. And I went, huh? She ran towards me and I was like, what's going on? And she goes, I'm so sorry. And I said, what? And she goes, I should have asked your permission. And I said, what? And she goes, well, you see, this thing we do on Wednesdays, the congregation, we a bunch of us get in a minivan and we just drive around to either people's houses or their businesses, and we just park out front and we pray for them. And she said, we know you're having a tough time with your business, so we were actually just here praying for you, but I didn't know you were here and you were going to catch us. And I'm sorry. And I was like, holy cow, you guys are amazing. It's like, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. That's such a beautiful example, right? So anyways, I spent maybe from my early 20s to maybe my mid to late 30s having ups and downs with what I thought about religion more than anything. I've always known I was a spiritual person, and I always wanted to have a way to tap into it more. I just had no idea what it was. Yeah. Then during COVID, I lost my job as a dance teacher. Although I didn't own my studio anymore. Teaching dance I'd been doing it since I was 21, and now I was 36. I didn't realize how much it really affected me. I didn't really realize that that's what was one of the things that was affecting me so much. I was having a really tough time and I was feeling really unhappy in my marriage, but I didn't want to call it quits without making sure that I wasn't the problem. So I'd been to counseling over the years. Like I said, I grew up in enough chaos that I felt like it might be a good idea to, over the years I'd been in therapy, but I decided for the first time to actually go and spend some time with a psychologist, which is like next level therapy.
Ooh,
Yes.
yeah.
We discussed this idea of, and this for me, I feel like was like the opening of a big change for me, which opened me up to like the next phase. He encouraged me to start actively working on reparenting myself. So the idea there, and we hear that
Ooh.
phrase, but like, what does that mean? What does that mean, reparenting yourself? So what I ended up doing, I took a little bit of his suggestions, and then I just kind of went with my own. Not really. Now I look back, and I'm like, because I knew what I needed, but I didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
That I didn't know that I knew what I needed. So, and I would challenge anyone who's listening, if you, this is a big
Yes.
challenge, but it was a game for me, like it was life changing for every part of my life. I sat down and I made a list of all of the traumatic experiences that I could remember in my childhood and my teen years. First of all, just like when you have a busy to-do list and you feel overwhelmed in your mind, and if you take the time to write the list down, it helped right off the bat. That can help you calm down because you can see it written
I'm a
down.
list maker.
And there's less blowing around inside your brain, right? So the neat thing for me was that when I made the list, it wasn't as long as I thought it would be. I mean, I said to one of my close girlfriends, I was like, the list was only like 13 or 14 items long. She was like, 13 items of traumatic. Like, that's a lot. And I was like, well, I don't know. I thought it was 50. Like, and it was just floating around in my head. I made this list of the traumatic experiences where maybe I could have been parented different or parented at all to be brought through it or nurtured in a different way. So I made the list. And then of my own volition, this wasn't something the therapist had said to do. I cut the list into strips, folded them up so I couldn't see what each one was. And in the back of my journal, there was just an envelope. Sometimes they're built with that in there. I tucked them all inside. Tucked all the little strips inside. And then when I was going to sit down and journal, because we know we're going to avoid hard things, right? You don't want to look at that stuff. I also actually had some other little flighty journal prompts stuffed in there too, because I was working on doing some shadow work and just exploring writing. I've always been a journal. But now I was diving deep. So I'd sit down with my journal and I'd stick my hand in the envelope and I'd be like, okay, what trauma are we going to deal with today? Like, because if I was looking at the list, I would have, let's do it. What surprise are we going to pull up? So I wouldn't let myself look in advance. I would just pick one out, read the sentence or two that described what it was, which would, of course, instantly trigger the memory in my mind. And then I would sit, bawl my flipping eyes out and write. I would write a little bit about it, but I didn't need to write a lot about it because it was me. I was there. The therapist had suggested that I write it like I was little kid me, so I could be like reheard. But what I found that worked better for me was to write it like me now to that little girl and explain what was going on and explain why that shouldn't have happened. So I was able to then be like, okay, little Mariah, right? 7-year-old Mariah. Yes. No one should have spoken to you like that. No one should have ever said those things to you. When your mom said X, Y, and Z, that was wrong. No little girl deserves to be spoken to like that. Let's look at the big picture of what your mom was dealing with. It wasn't like an excuse thing. It wasn't like it was going to just blow it all away. But it was like let's look at the bigger picture. Why a grown adult who loves you would have said those things. What was going on for her that would even be. And anyways, I walked myself through all of these traumas. I only ever, of course, did one per sitting because it was hard.
Sounds hard.
It was hard, but I came out the other side of it having reparented myself with compassion. And then what I didn't expect to happen was I started to become more compassionate in my own life toward other people, including my children.
Ooh.
So now I started instead of, what happens to us, lots of us grew up this way. I'm sure there's lots of people still do this all the time. Where our kids come to us and they're upset about something and we think it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So we'll say, calm down, or it's not that big of a deal, or, okay, here's the fix or whatever. And by reparenting myself, when I was writing to little girl me, I wasn't telling little girl me how to fix it. I wasn't telling little girl me that she shouldn't feel those feelings. I was nurturing her and holding space for her feelings. So then I was bringing that into my regular life, right? Where it was like, one of my kids would come and tell me something that happened. Instead of trying to fix it or dismiss them or whatever the thing was that I might have done before, I started doing things like saying, like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Or like, that must have felt terrible. And I mean, you still, of course, once in a while, still have to like guide, well, all the time, guide them. But it started to
Yeah.
change how I became compassionate to other people, showing myself more compassion and realizing I'd heard the phrase, of course, hold space, but what
Yeah.
does that mean until you're actively holding space? Like let's just sit here and acknowledge that that felt really awful. And I'm sorry your friend was mean to you today. Like, I'm so sorry, whatever.
Yeah.
So it brought me in the direction of understanding on a way deeper level, compassion. Because I don't think I wasn't compassionate before. I just became a lot more compassionate.
Yeah.
So that you are the best listener ever, Cristina, as I go on this long thing, this story. My goodness. So fast forward another year or so.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast, Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. Okay. So I was listening to that podcast. I was like an avid listener of that. Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, was on there. I'd read that book and I'm a fan of her. And I'd listened to her, I think, once before on the podcast, maybe. I think this may be her second episode on there. Glennon Doyle says to Elizabeth Gilbert, hey, sometimes, I guess they're buddies. And she's like, hey, sometimes when I call you on the phone, you'll say, hey, I just was finishing up my spiritual practice, or she has some phrase she would use. Glennon Doyle's like, what is that? Am I telling you something you already know?
I know where you're going at. Yeah.
Okay. So they explain it and Elizabeth Gilbert says what she does. So I very promptly, like the next day, I loved this idea. I did what Elizabeth Gilbert kind of said to do. I sat down and I designed my own higher power. Because over that last 10 plus years, when I'd established that when I heard something with God in it, it made me feel prickly. Prior to that, I'd been listening to an audiobook that was phenomenal, but the lady kept talking about God. Every time she said God, it made me imagine the man in the sky sitting, looking over and judging me. My husband actually suggested, he's like, well, why don't you change it? You feel good about something like, say, Mother Nature. He was like, why don't you, every time you hear the word God, why don't you just switch it in your head to Mother Nature? And maybe that'll make it better for you. But it did. What an amazing suggestion. I designed my higher power. It sounds so blasphemous, right? When we think about what lots of people would feel or think if you said that, but I did it. It was, and it's funny because it had been my husband a few years before that had given me the suggestion. I called her Mother Nature. She was this nurturing, larger than life, non-judgmental being, spirit, I don't know, whatever, that would always hold space for me and hold space for anyone, right?
Anyone, 100%.
Anyone. There is no judgment, and so then I very quickly also followed what Elizabeth Gilbert said, where she would say, well, then I ask, what do you want me to know today? Or what do you want me to remember? What do you want me to, whatever. I started doing that. I don't know how quickly, I think it was a little while before I realized what was really happening, but I would ask this, what do you want me to remember? Or what do you want me to know? I like going with remember because I like the idea that we all know everything we need to know. And within probably a few months of doing this fairly regularly is when I started to realize that this was something coming through me that was not just me. And I started to realize
the realization is so cool.
I became a little bit addicted to writing like this because it felt so self-indulgent. Like it was amazing.
Well, I think that's why he wrote so many books.
Yeah. Totally. Right. He just kept going and going and going. Yeah, exactly. Because it's beautiful. And so when I realized it was I was struggling. I've always butted heads a lot with my oldest daughter, who I think we just have a lot. She has amazing qualities, but if you take her worst qualities, they're probably also my worst qualities. So then when those things come together, it's a little bit feisty. Whether it was that I was struggling with her or struggling with my husband, I would sit down and I'd be like, "Wah!" And I wouldn't let myself go on for long because I knew I was going to be asking Mother Nature for her guidance. I didn't need to tell Mother Nature what was going on because she knows what's going on, get the gist of it out. I would say, please tell me, what do I need to remember in this? When I started to realize that this wasn't just me, was I could look back and realize that stuff that was coming out of me was so wise, so loving. There was, if you were like, I could be angry, like angry writing. Then it would be the response, if you will, from Mother Nature was this, like, it was always reminding me that whatever I was struggling with, that if it was another person, they were doing their best and like writing in detail how they're doing their best. It was always this guidance that after a while I realized that it was just a click. Like I'm actually getting advice, maybe that's a better word than that, guidance from Mother
Right.
Nature or whoever is channeling. I've started to toy recently with thinking that it might be actually my higher self. I'm not sure. I haven't identified what that is, but that makes sense for me too, because who knows, right? But
Yeah.
and it just became, yeah, like I said, it became a little bit of a, I just filled, I was probably filling like 4 journals a year because I would just, like,
Oh,
because I would sit down. It became my daily practice. Well, still is. Like, I've been
yeah.
slacking a little bit because I'm trying to edit this book. So sometimes when I would have been sitting to journal, now I sit and edit. But I would get up early every single morning. When we hear people like, I get up early and run, I get up early and go to the gym, I'm always
Yeah.
like, hey, that's crazy talk. I could never do that. I can get up without having 8 hours of sleep if it means I'm going to sit quietly and be able to write like that,
Wow.
because it's the most beautiful. It's amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
They say morning is where you get the most downloads.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think there's not very often that I would even bother in the afternoon.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I
Yeah.
like to write at night.
At night. So I had, if you're okay to go on another wild story, I have a nighttime to share with you. Okay. Okay. So a handful of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I had a really neat experience where I got to go to a spa with a girlfriend, like go on a spa trip. I'd never done that before. So it would have
Yeah.
been 2023, maybe. Yeah, 2023. And because I had just gotten into real estate. So I was actually in a situation where I could do something like go to for a spa weekend. I had this really cool thing where the masseuse, we weren't talking at all, but we had like a conversation. I didn't
Yeah.
know what it was when it was happening. I kept imagining on 2 different occasions in the massage, I kept imagining she was going to say something to me about something. Then
Mhm.
she didn't. I would like in my brain reprimand myself and be like, shut up and have your massage. You're having a fake conversation with someone who's not even talking to you. Like, just relax and have your massage. And then when I got out of the massage, she
Yeah.
said that when we were in there, she
Yeah.
had some really strong messages that she needed to share with me. They were along the same lines. It was wild. We'll save that one for another day, maybe. But it was a neat thing. And in
That's
turn,
neat.
it was, yeah, another like, it was life changing for me again because I wasn't writing a book yet. I was journaling like a maniac, but I wasn't writing
Mhm.
anything that I was going to share with the world. What she said inspired me that this is over the weekend. By Monday morning, I started writing. So when I first started writing, I would get up in the mornings like I did when I was journaling, but instead I'd sit with my computer and I didn't know what I was doing yet. I just thought I didn't. And as time went on, I formulated some more kind of guidelines and it was like, but I decided after a bit of writing that I was going to be something like a spiritual guidebook for like people that just wanted to try different things to
Yeah.
see what felt right for them. So I would do the same thing with my writing. I'd get up in the morning and I would decide what topic I was going to write on. My youngest daughter would come down in the morning down the stairs and be like, Mom, are you writing with your eyes closed again? Because I was doing my same thing. I would channel, but I could still, luckily I knew how to type. I would just say, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
write about this today. And I would just type kind of, yeah. It was great. I'd been doing it for a couple months
Mhm.
and I was loving it. And the other thing that was really neat, this is part of that channeling thing. I've heard other people talk
Yeah.
about this too, is that I wouldn't edit it. My eyes would be closed. Um, I'd probably write for a few sessions, like through the
Mhm.
week. The next week, if I wasn't feeling overly inspired, I'd get up in the morning and then I'd just read through what I'd written and fix my
Yeah.
mistakes. That's when I was also like, what the heck? I wrote that? Or I would be reading it like I had never heard it before. I was like, we hear these, right? Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about that. He
Yes, he
sometimes
does. Yeah.
he doesn't remember what he's written. He's just written these things. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not writing this. I'm just bringing this through. I'm just like the conduit, right? Like, so neat. Yes. So I'd been writing that like that for a few months. I have a close girlfriend. This is a bit interesting to share. You might decide to edit it out. Her husband has, okay, so remember I live in Canada. I live in British Columbia.
Yes.
So there's things legal here that are not legal in other places. And her husband has a very green thumb. He had a very green thumb and had grown an abundance of marijuana. He wasn't a big pot smoker, but he had lots. Like he was a bit, it was just, he enjoyed growing it. Anyways,
Yeah.
she didn't like to smoke it, but she wanted to find a way to indulge once in a while. And she figured out how to make like a tincture with it. It's like something you just make it like people make THC drinks. So
Right.
she had figured out how to make it herself. she had come to visit me, and she brought some of this stuff with her. And after all of our kids were to bed or whatever, she was like, do you want to try this? I was like, okay, sure. Right. So we sat on the couch and just quite late, probably 10 o'clock, the two of us. And we drank this drink where you put this stuff in. It wasn't like what smoking pot would be like. It was almost a little bit psychedelic. We had this amazing conversation. She's a very open-minded. She's a very good friend of mine. But we don't normally talk like spiritual stuff, or we didn't back then. But it was like we had this amazing conversation, and I had like kind of new ideas coming. So stoner, that's not the case at all, but it was just a wild experience. And I remember thinking, whoa, I wonder what it would be like to write like this. Like I don't ever write under the influence. I write at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? And I'm not, anyways, I won't go on to defend myself. You get the And so fast forward another, couple weeks, when the timing was right, got my kids to bed. My husband was downstairs washing dishes or something. I said, hey, I'm gonna make one of these drinks for myself, and then I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna write just to see what happens. Okay, whatever. So I make the drink upstairs. I'm sitting and writing. As I was writing, I remember my eyes were closed because they are closed when I'm writing like that. I had this thought that was about like what I intend for myself. I won't get into details about this because I only have so much of your time as I yak your ear off. But I have some things I really want to do in life.
Yes.
That have to do with like, and I'm never quite sure how I'm going to make it happen. I was headed in that direction. I was doing well in real estate, but so my eyes are closed. I'm imagining this home, and I have this thought of like, real estate is really great and profitable, but I don't know that real estate is the thing that's going to make that happen. Like that, what you have in mind is pretty epic. This has happened twice to me in my life where I literally feel like I could know the spot where the like download comes to, but all of a sudden I was like, zip right in this spot in the back of my head. It was like, it's your writing. Like you're going to be publishing books, and that's what's going to goodness. I hope we're all here to watch this actually happen when books get out.
We are.
I was like, but this book you're writing isn't like a mass audience book. This actually isn't your book. As I'm typing this. Like I have this I was writing as all this was happening.
Yeah.
I had for whatever reason, I kind of tilted my head. I had a like, this isn't your book, but what is your book? Or there's a different book actually. I opened my eyes. So I never wrote at night, and I never used to write in my bedroom. But I was writing at night, and I was writing in my bedroom.
Interesting, because that's where I write. I write in my bedroom.
So I always write in my living room. I'm going through a divorce right now, and I don't live in my house, but I have in my house that my ex-husband lives in. I had set my living room up like just the best thing I'd ever had. I'd never bought new furniture before. I had a beautiful couch that I loved. I did have this bookshelf. The bookshelf sits across from me, and I would sit there, the chaise lounge of my couch, and that's where I would write, gazing at my bookshelf and feeling so grateful, looking out the window at the beautiful mountains. And that's where I would always write. So nighttime, 10:30 in my bedroom. I open my eyes as I've just had this realization that there's another book to write that's not this book.
Yeah.
When I open my eyes, I'm looking in my closet, across the room, closet open. And on the floor of my closet are all of my journals. From the time I was 10 years old, I started writing in a diary when I was 10. I have moved. When I got to move number 45 in my life, I stopped counting my moves. I have moved more than the average person. I have kept every single one of my journals from the time I was in the 4th grade. Why are they not in a box in my crawl space? Why are they sitting in a perfect stack in my bedroom and been sitting there? We bought that house in 2019. So, and this would have been 2023, 2024, let's say by this point. And they're just sitting there. When I opened my eyes, I'm just staring at them. I was like, oh, that's my book. So the next day, I grabbed the first journal. It's very apparent which one was the grade 4, 10-year-old journal. And instead of going downstairs to write like I normally would, I brought my journal down. I started transcribing my journal in typing. Then it triggered memories, of course. Like lots of us could try to go back and sit and write a memoir and remember. But like reading your journal entries brings you back, right? So then I could fill in the blanks. It took me no time at all, a few months, because it was so interesting. It was painful at times to go through, and I've been through a lot. I've been through abusive relationships, and my grade 12 boyfriend died by suicide. I've experienced a lot. So there were times that it was hard, but I just kept going and filling in the blanks. And like, what a cathartic experience doing all that too. And then I was coming up to about 25 years old and my book was already like ridiculous. Like if I went and looked up online, like how many words is whatever this book, or like my
Yeah.
book was going to be like this big. I was like, I'm not going to write a Gone with the Wind, like epic story. No
Yeah.
one will read it, right? Nobody's reading big, long books anymore. As a reader myself, I know I still kind of go to the shorter books because I know I'm going to be able to read it faster because all of our attention spans are shot. Exactly. I was getting to about age 25 as I going through these journals and writing. And I was having a bit of a tough time because I was like, this book is already quite long. Like I can't keep going. What am I going to do? And my oldest daughter, who I got pregnant with and had her when I was 25, she said, well, I don't mean to make it all about me, Mom, but why don't you end it here? You're about to have your first baby. All these like childhood tribulations and teen and struggle.
I see where this is going.
And now you've got married, you're going to get married and you're going to have a baby. And then coincidentally, sometime maybe 4 months before this was when I told my husband that I didn't want to be married anymore. Finally, after all the like strife and struggle, and we'd been together for 19 years. Like I said, during COVID, I was quite unhappy, but was doing everything I could to make sure. And everything in my life was beautiful, except for that after I'd done all the work. And so I had just recently ended my marriage. So when my daughter said this to me, she said, why don't you end it at 25? She goes, and then you can have a second book. And your second book can start with, okay, now I'm getting a divorce. And so we'll see. That's down the road. So I ended it off with falling in love with the father of my children, and then getting pregnant, and then having my daughter. And then I've ended it there. So I finished writing that in like January of 2025. Editing is so hard.
I've heard that is the hardest process.
Yes. Yeah. But if I hadn't been kind of given that amazing download, I don't even know. One other little wild thing in there was that now that I've been through every page of every journal I've had up to 25, when I was in the 6th grade was the first time that I wrote in a journal, I'm going to write a book. From the same thing as that manifestation stuff, or that thing where we're imagining we already somehow know what's going to happen. I in the 6th grade, I would have been 12. When I was 12 years old, the first time that I put down in a journal, I'm going to write a book. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to that long story, Cristina. My goodness gracious.
I think it's meant to come out. So can you speak to the listeners who don't know what automatic writing is? Basically, what it is and how do you do automatic writing? Because I think everybody's got their own little spin to it.
Yeah, sure. When I think of like the actual physical process for me, I kind of create it like a little bit of a ritual for myself. So for me, it's like I went to Costa Rica a couple of years ago and I was introduced to like cacao, like proper, making an actual wonderful drink. And of course, I doctor it up to make it tasty as can be. So in the morning, I'll either make myself a cacao or I have green tea, and I will like sit down. Doesn't work if anybody's up and with me. Like it has to just be me, right? Otherwise there's interruptions, whatever else. I generally try to be really disciplined to make sure that I try to leave my phone further away from me, or at the very least make sure the ringer's off and not allow myself to be tempted to pick it up, because it just seems like it shuts everything off right away, right?
100%.
Yeah. And then I'll light some incense and get my stuff out and get myself cozy on my couch. And for me, I sometimes will do like a grounding practice if I'm feeling a little bit frazzled, but generally first thing in the morning, like you said, the first thing in the morning thing is what allows it, I think. As the day goes on, I think we get more, there's stimulation, right? When we wake up in the morning, we're like not stimulated. And so that's the part of like not trying to not be on your phone. But the grounding exercise that I do sometimes when I'm doing that is I imagine, so I take deep breaths, of course. And when I imagine my deep breath in, I'm pulling it in from Mother Earth, like from the ground. And yeah, you're probably not standing, but you could be. And I imagine this like pulling in. And then as I exhale, I imagine my roots, whether I'm standing or sitting, whatever, going down deep center of the earth and like grasping around the core of the earth, like tree roots, right? So if you're standing, you can do this almost like you can, as you do it, you start to feel like you could be like a tree, like you are so connected, nothing could blow you over, nothing could push you over, right? I'll do that into the ground. And then I like to change it where then I bring it up to the divine, like I said earlier, whatever the word is that works for you. If that's one thing I could share with everyone, right? It's like whatever word works for you, just always change it to that word. Never let someone's language stop a message from coming, whether you want to just say God or whether you want to say universe or source or divine, whatever, right? So then I do the same thing with the divine, where I will go up and imagine like a golden rope of light going up to the divine and back down to me with each of my breaths. Once I feel like I've tuned into that, up and down, then I take it up a notch and I send down to the earth on like an exhale and an inhale from the earth, and then up to the heavens with the exhale and back. So I become like the conduit in between.
Yeah.
And I've had some really neat experiences with that. Because even, and I mean, this is something that like it's less than 5 minutes to do this whole thing, right? But it allows me like a reminder or like it becomes very real when you're very concentrated on it. Like I've had some neat things come to me where it's like, I am the walking around, living, breathing experience of the up and the down coming together. And this is what we're here to do. We're here walking around on this earth in the middle between whatever is in the middle of the earth and above. Anyway, so I do this kind of grounding practice if I'm feeling not grounded. And then from there, I open my journal up and I'll generally, I don't think this is just me, but maybe it's just me. There's always kind of something wrong in your life, right? Like something you would like, you wish could be fixed, right? And what I do then is I will write almost like I'm writing a bit of a letter to Mother Nature. I did that thing where I designed it like it is Mother Nature. You're going to use anyone's going to use what they want. I definitely recommend that idea of designing your higher power, right? I didn't intend this at all, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of a plug. I set up an online course, like an online masterclass sort of thing where you get like a weekly email from me. I took the time to write out exactly how to do that. So if anyone's look on my website, it's just Mariah Inferny or MariahRealEstateFerny.ca is my website. Sorry, I did not intend to do just, I thought people want to
meant to be in there.
Yeah, thank you. So it gives you instructions on how to do that because I took the time because I knew there's been people in my life that are like, but how did you do it? Right. So you've designed your higher power or whoever you're channeling, right? You've distinguished who that is or something like it. And then I write but not a lot, right? This is the key for me because I think there's a reason a lot of people don't journal, or when I was younger, I didn't journal as much, is because I felt like I was recounting experiences like I needed to finish the story in my journal, right? Like today I went to school and I got in a fight with my friend and she said this and then I said this. So then I went to and then it's like, you get sick of writing that. You already lived it. You don't want to do that. I think that some people that can hinder people. You don't need to finish a sentence or a thought in a journal. It's yours, right? And the same thing when I'm reaching out for guidance from source or divine or Mother Nature, whatever that power is, whatever that energy is, already knows everything. I only make it a few sentences, right? Because then I don't get lost in the recounting of the thing that I'm upset with. So it'll be really brief and it'll be like, can you please give me some guidance on, right? Or I am so angry with my husband right now. I'm beside myself. I don't even know what to do. I wouldn't let myself get into the what was happening. And then I would say, please, Mother Nature, can you please give me some sort of guidance or help me remember what I need to know? Yeah. I don't know that I could have done this before I started doing the reparenting, right? The reparenting and the compassion is the chain of events that brings me to when I start writing. And of course, this will be different for everyone. I can't tell people how to automatic write. But for me, what started happening was then I started showing myself compassion, right? And it was like, then the writing that would come would, after a while, realizing that when it wasn't me, that this is Mother Nature divine replying to me. That was the other reason I started to realize that it was beyond me, because I would never have normally talked to myself like this before. It would be like, Mariah, you have been trying so hard. Like you are doing everything you can. Just remember to whatever, or keep this in mind. And this is where it comes in that it was this like, this is not me. I'm not this nice.
Yes.
And it was just that not letting myself judge. No one's going to know. It took a long time to even tell anyone I was doing this, because I felt like thank goodness we don't live 500 years ago, right? We don't be burned at the stake. We're talking about this stuff. And that's something actually my acupuncturist said to me too. We shared something with her. She went to share something back and then she hesitated. And then she, I guess, has done some work. And she was like, I don't need to stay quiet about this stuff. I can speak openly. No one's going to hurt me. Right. It's just for you. No one's going to know you're doing this. Experiment with it. Right. There's no harm. And something you and I talked about in our little email chain back and forth was like, everyone can do this. I am no
100%.
more connected to the divine than every other single person that might be listening to this.
Yes. So my story with automatic writing is my mentor, Julie Jancis. She had a class or a workshop or something about automatic writing. I tried it
Mhm.
and I wasn't getting anything. Like I wasn't. And then so I was like, but I kept having this feeling like it's something I'm supposed to do. So I kept practicing and
Ah,
practicing.
yeah,
Everybody says practice gets you close to perfect.
yeah.
So I kept practicing. This is what I tell everybody is when I first started doing the automatic writing, I just asked, what do I need to know today? Or give me one
Mhm.
word to carry my day through.
Yeah, yeah,
And then eventually it got through sentences and paragraphs. For me, I do grounding as well.
yeah,
I do pen or paper pencil.
yeah.
Sometimes I'll do typing. However, I did try with my eyes closed and it came out all gibberish. So I said, all right, that's not going to work for me. Because for me, I find that with my eyes closed, I get a lot of downloads, but with the pen or pencil, I get a lot of downloads too. So I was like, all right, let me stick with the pencil or pen. And then I was like, let me try the computer again, but with my eyes open. And I was able to get the downloads too.
Do you find when you do it like that, can you just like glaze over and or were you watching what you were typing?
No, I just completely look at the screen, which is funny because I can, I think I'm a good typer. Like I can
Mhm,
type pretty
mhm.
well without looking at the keyboard. But with my eyes closed, it came out all gibberish. But when I was doing it with my eyes open, it all came out right. Like the words all formed and things. So, and I always tell people, you find what works for you. Sometimes it's on my phone if I don't have my computer with me, because I get this little nudge like, hey, I think it's time to automatic write. Like
Mhm.
recently, I've been getting that nudge at work, which is kind of funny because I like to be completely by myself. Sometimes I'll do it during lunch or first thing in the morning before like all the kids arrive because I work in a school district before it gets all too rowdy. And I'll write like a page or so. And I always listen. So for me, I'm very clairaudient. So I hear a lot of my downloads. So I kind of hear a lot of words when I automatic write. It's kind of like when people say, when you read, do you hear your own voice when you read or you don't? And I hear when I read my own voice. Does that make sense? What I
Yeah,
said?
I'm just trying to think what I do. Yeah, I don't know. I think I hear my
Because I
voice
guess
too.
some people don't. So when I try to explain automatic writing to people, they're like, what do you mean you hear what you're writing? It's the same thing for reading. Some people just don't hear themselves when they read. So I always like to throw that little caveat in there that
Interesting.
I'm very clairaudient that when I read, I can hear it. And when I type or write, I
Yeah.
can hear the words that are
Yes.
coming through.
Oh, yeah, that's true. When I'm typing or writing, yeah, yeah, I agree.
So I always like to start with God, universe, source, angels, guides, and loved ones. What do I need to know today?
Mhm.
Sometimes it will come out like a full letter, like they're writing it to me. Sometimes it will just be messages. Then I'll ask who is writing or who is stepped forward, which I
Oh,
Spirit was telling me to tell you is ask. Like
yes.
I'll ask like, what do I need to know today, and who is with me during this session?
Thank you for this. I've
You're
never
so
thought of
welcome.
doing that. Yes.
So sometimes I'll get like, it's your higher self or your inner child or a specific archangel. Sometimes I'll get multiple in a letter. Like they'll step forward and be like, "This is Archangel Michael, and this is my message," and then he'll go, and then they'll be like, "So and so is stepping forward now, and we'll continue writing." I think there's something in there for you.
There is. There most definitely. Yes.
And I think this is going to intertwine in your book, is what they're whispering to me. Is as you learn their writing and how you connect with them. For me, I'm clairaudient, but I also feel their energy. Then that can be a book, is you working with them and your experiences in a, I know you're not done
Thank
with this book yet, but
No, but that's amazing. I only recently started thinking, who am I talking to? Or like, who's talking to me? I started about a year ago. Yeah, about a year, just over a year ago, experimenting with divining rods. Yeah. And it started, there's a gal on Instagram. What's her name?
yes, yes, I think I've seen her. She's blonde hair.
Blonde hair. She always has like a cool background behind her.
Yes. I
Yeah.
can't remember her name, but
What is her
I
name?
watch her too.
You know what? I don't think it's her name on Instagram. I think it's something else, like
It's like
global.
I think it's the instrument she's using, right? It's
Maybe.
I don't
Oh
know.
my
If I
God.
find it, I'm gonna
Okay.
link her in the show notes
Yes.
because
Yes. So
and I'll
she
send it to you.
inspired me. Yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah. So she inspired. I was watching her. I was like, actually, how this started was that I was watching her. I was like, really loved it. And what I thought was neat. So for me, maybe you can tell me what this is called. I should know this. Someone did tell me, and I forgot. I don't hear things. I don't see things. For me, it just feels like a knowing.
Your claircognizance.
Thanks. I'm going to write that down. And so as she was using the divining rods and doing her thing, before they moved, I always knew what the answer was. She asks, I think people must send in questions because some of her questions are,
Yes,
you could
yes,
see when
she
you
has
could
this
see the
whole
look on
thing.
her face sometimes, right? Where she's like, what the heck is this? But even when they were questions that I didn't know what we were actually even talking about, or I'd never even pondered that question before,
Yeah.
the knowing came to me. And then her things would move too. I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. So I just went and ordered some. Like,
Hmm.
hot tip, they're like $15 on Amazon. So I ordered them. Oh, this is interesting. When I was still in my family home, even though, so
Yeah.
the first little while that we were split, we stayed in the home together. It was a bit of a system that was working for us. I had them and I tried a few times and they just wasn't working. Nothing was working for them. My husband tried them. They were working for him. We were still on great terms at that point. He was like, oh, can I have these or something like that? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Work for me. Like,
Yeah.
and I left them. Then things got bad between us. When I moved out, I took them with me because I was bitter and I wasn't leaving them. And then over the summer, this last summer, I just started working more with like tuning in more. Also, last summer,
Mhm.
I started hosting new moon, like women's groups. I would host them on the new
Oh,
moon.
yeah.
I just started growing into this stuff more, doing more of this sort of stuff where I was kind of leading a little bit more. And I started to once in a while pick them up. And I would wait though. I would wait until I was feeling really grounded, right? If I'd been writing
Yeah.
and I was just feeling really connected, then I would use them. Because if my energy is, if I pick them up in the middle of the day and try to use them, it's like, yeah, right. They're all over the place. And they started actually working.
Ooh.
But they're based on energy, right? So just in the
Yes.
last few months, I started thinking about this and I was like, is it my energy? Am I like, are these yeses and nos coming from me? And that's when I started to think about the whole, who am I getting this guidance from when I'm doing my writing? And so that's when I started to go, I think it might just be me, but I really love this idea of asking because I didn't ever think about asking. I didn't even think of that as being an option. I was just like, I thought to myself, how do other people know who they're talking with? Duh. Yeah. Ask. I'm curious
Yeah.
about that too. Yeah. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
just wondered when I
So,
was using the mining rods, if I was just talking to myself.
right. Yeah. I ask in the beginning, or sometimes I'll ask at the end if I forget. And
Yeah.
then because my communication with them comes in letters a lot,
Mhm.
they'll be like with love, blah blah, archangel, blah 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 blah. But something they told me while you were telling your story that I have to tell you is, have you tried writing a letter to a loved one and then having the loved one write the letter back?
No,
You should try it.
I knew I put a piece of paper beside me for a reason today. I will try that.
I This was my first like breakthrough in automatic writing. My mentor had me write a letter to a loved one. And I was like, okay, like, I can do that. And I can't remember if it was that same evening or the next evening. I literally was like, all right, I'm gonna let the pen take over. And that's what's really important when you're doing automatic writing for any of the listeners is don't edit, just write.
Oh yeah, no editing.
Write what you see, feel like, tap into your clairs and just write. So I
Yes.
wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And I was like, okay, I felt that the energy was gone. So, and the letter was beautiful. I read it back and I was like, that just came out of my hand. Like, I
Mhm.
just did that.
Yep.
It just is automatic writing. I wish everybody could do it. Like, does it? Because everyone
Yeah.
can do it.
Everyone can do it, but everyone take the
Everyone
time to
can
do
do
it.
it
Yeah.
because everyone does.
Yeah.
Because the information that you not only get, but the connection that you make with your spirit team,
Hmm.
it's just
It started
fabulous.
really, yeah, it started really for me to around the same time I started doing that was when I started to have a stronger feeling and understanding of unconditional love. So because that was happening around the same time as my marriage, it started happening. I was started writing like that before my marriage ended, but like within the year, sort of. I actually just was listening to something by Dr. Wayne Dyer the other day, and he was talking about like there's three kinds of love. There's like the love, the totally conditional love of like we can say we love our partner unconditionally. You actually probably don't because there are things your partner could do to make you stop loving them, right? I didn't grow up feeling unconditionally loved. As heartbreaking as that might be if my parents were to listen to this. I didn't grow up feeling unconditional. I didn't even know what that was, but I didn't feel it. I'd never felt that. I realize now that my parents love me unconditionally, but it's taken a very long time for me to feel like that's a real thing. Through my marriage, I knew that my husband really loved me and he would say he loved me unconditionally, but there was just this thing that was not ringing true to that. And it bothered me. It bothered me. And I remember
that was your knowingness.
that was my knowing, right? That, and I can go back to being in therapy years ago when my kids were little and I was just going through some stuff. My dad transitioned in around 2011, and I had a really tough time with that. It was hard for me. Not very many. No, I should say there's lots of people out there that have a parent that transitions, but it's not super common, and it was less common then too. I was having a tough time. I was seeing a therapist about this, and I remember saying to him like, he would say, I would be doubting something with my husband. And he was like, but look at the proof is in the pudding. He's such a great guy. He does these things for you. He cares for you. He's patient with you, blah, 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 blah. And I was saying, but I know if I wanted to change the arrangement, all of that would go out the window. Right. So I really struggled because I knew that if we really stop and think about it, we all know that, right? Like anyways. And so I struggled with this idea of unconditional love. And I knew I love my children unconditionally. So back to the Wayne Dyer thing, he says you have your partner love, or even your friends, right? They can do things that would make you stop loving them. And then you have love for your children, which are, even if they did something terrible, unspeakably terrible, still love them. That's a different kind of love. But that's still not the same as the love from the divine or from source or from whatever we're calling it, the angels. The unconditional, never wavering, not even just if you did something terrible, I'd still love you. None of that even matters. There's nothing that you even need to bring up that could alter what that love is. And by doing the automatic writing and experiencing this ongoing presence of unconditional love and support from Mother Nature, was probably something that allowed me to actually acknowledge in my unhappiness in my marriage and make a change for myself, because I was open to, we're all receiving unconditional love, but our receivers might be turned off, right? If you're tuned into the wrong radio channel, you're not going to get the message, right? So by tuning in, changing the frequency that I was looking for, I was able to actually get the messages of unconditional love and support, which then made it so I could also show more of that out into the world, because it was filling me up with it, right? Every day that I would sit and write was this other reminder that I had this. Every time I've ever spoken to a medium or been in anything like that, my grandma is always there. So I'm really interested to like ask if it's my grandma that's talking to me sometimes, but that same grandma that I was close with and spent lots of time with, she was my person. And she's the only person that I'd ever felt unconditional love from. Like, she acted like the sun shone out of my ass, right? Like I was the best thing in the world to her. And
I have the chills, so yes.
Yes. She is just with me all the time. Like, like I said, every time I talk to a medium, I'll be in something where someone else is supposed to be getting a reading from the medium, and my grandma is like distracting things to let the medium know, to tell me that she's there. And it's like, yeah, I got it, Grandma. I'm so grateful. Like, she's here. I've all the goosebumps now too. Anyway, so yeah, more automatic writing for everyone could probably make the whole world a better place, couldn't it?
It does. And I bet that's what I was saying about the letter. I wonder if you're supposed to write the letter to her and she's supposed to write one back.
That would be amazing. When I was first in the very beginning of my separation from my husband and I was having a tough time, I dreamt about my grandma. She came to me in a way that she'd never come to me before. It was this, like, she was very wise. My grandma was a very like simple woman, didn't have a lot of education. We didn't have big, deep talks or anything. But in this dream, where I was in the beginning of this journey of ending my marriage and changing my whole life, my grandma came through, and it was like there was two of her. There was like how she was on earth, and there was like who she actually was as a soul. But yeah, amazing stuff. Well, Cristina, thank you for all this.
Of course. So we have a couple minutes left, so I would like you to kind of give the listeners something that, what do you want the listeners to walk away with from this conversation from today? And then where can people find you?
Yes, thank you. I think rounding back to the same thing you and I said, everyone can do this. Even if you try it and you feel like you can't do it, just try it a little bit. It's just writing in
Yeah,
a journal or on your
months.
yeah, yeah. It why not, right? And even if you are writing to yourself and you are questioning the whole darn thing, that's okay too. Not everyone's a writer, right? So the other thing that I think that people
Yes.
can remember to do is I if you I have a good friend, Brooke. She is the founder of an amazing company called Dance Alchemy. And she was just talking the other day about how she's not always a big writer. So she just opens up her memo on her phone and turns the voice text on and just says things. Um,
Smart.
and I've done that for a few things too when I have messages for friends. Anyway, so I think just experiment. If I ever actually end up publishing the book that's the spiritual guidebook, that's actually a big part of that is like just ways to experiment, because the more we can connect with that part of ourselves, our higher self, source, there's so much healing that we can do for ourselves, for our families, for our ancestors going back, and for everyone in the world, this collective healing.
Yes.
We have the power to do these things, right? It just means indulging and spending a little bit of time to do it, and giving it your attention, right? So yeah, that would be my, anyone can do this stuff. I hope that everyone's trying to, because it's amazing. And then on Instagram, I am at Mariah in Fernie. There's some
Okay.
underscores in there too, but you would find it if you look that way. And then my website is Mariah Real Estate Fernie. And then I'm in a little bit of a crossroads right now because I am still Mariah Runions in all things. But in the very near future, I hope to be going back to my maiden name. And when I do publish my books, it'll be with my maiden name, which is Mariah Sheridan. So I'm all the ways everywhere right now, which is a little bit tricky, but it is what it is anyway. So yeah.
Thank you, Mariah, so much. This was such a great conversation. I feel like we could talk like another hour or two.
I agree, Cristina. Thank you so much. I would love to come back one day. This has been great.
Yes, when the book comes out, I'll have to come back on.
I would love that.
Perfect. Thank you again so, so much. This was a lovely conversation. It was great to talk to somebody that does automatic writing as well.
I can't. Thanks for these tips too. I will. I'm going to go back and try this for sure.
Yeah, let me know how that works out.
I will.
It's interesting to see how everybody else does it differently, because we're all under the umbrella of automatic writing, but there's so many different ways to do it and what people receive when they do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, I would love, actually, I've never really thought about learning how other people do this or learning about what they get, but I'm curious about that. I'm going to do some diving into this and see what I can find out there. 'Cause it's pretty neat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so neat. Lovely souls, have a wonderful, beautiful, blessed day and try automatic writing. You'll surprise yourself.